Hey guys, so I'm just going to share a link here to get some people in here so we can kind of have a discussion. But yeah, we'll talk. We're going to talk about stake pool keys, and then I guess we'll just kind of maybe talk about marketing. So I think that's kind of big topic as well. The keys are obviously really important. I'm just going to get this tweet out and we'll get to it. All right, that's cool. Keep that short and sweet. How you doing today, Ron? You feeling good?
Yeah, I'm awesome. Putting the little one upstairs so we don't have any background noise. Give me 1 second.
Yeah. No worries. Take your time, man. I got the tweet out and we'll just wait for some people to come on in.
All right, for sure.
Okay. All right, so I will maybe get started without while we wait for Ron. I actually wrote some stuff today on keys for another topic. Go ahead and pull that up and we can kind of maybe stick to that. I don't know if I'm going to share my screen or not. I think we can just kind of maybe talk to it. But let's get that open. So I've got a reference point and then we can chat. Is anybody here? Let's see. Is anybody here watching us be silly? Hello? I guess not. Okay.
Okay, I'm back. Yeah. We had some RSVPs, but I don't know. I guess it's just gonna be you and I being
That's funny. Cool, man. Yeah, we can get started, and then sorry guys, we're getting off to a little late start. I'm just trying to get the stream open so I can have visibility into the chat. Okay, cool. All right. So let's talk about
we have some people actually joining us on the YouTube channel, so that's cool. So yeah, go ahead.
Okay, cool. All right. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. And what we'll do is I guess maybe we'll just talk about keys to start with. So when you're dealing with Cardano wallets or stake pools or anything like that, you've got what's called key pairs. And so you essentially have a private key and a public key. And your private key is basically, the keys to the kingdom. You should protect those at all costs, and treat them, somewhat differently depending on which keys they are. Now, from a cryptographic standpoint, Cardano uses ED25519 cryptography, which is an advanced cryptography, but it's pretty good. So the public keys and private keys are simply ED25519 key pairs. And so what you do is how you generate addresses and whatnot is they're all considered these components. The first thing you'll do is you'll generate, like your payment key pairs, a public and a private key. And so your address is actually derived from the public portion of that key, right? So the public portion you can share with people if you like. There's nothing really sensitive about that information, but the private keys need to be treated extremely carefully. And what I mean by extremely carefully, for all intents and purposes, they should never, ever, ever touch an internet connected node. Now, with stake pool keys, it's a little bit different. There's certain keys that are private that have to be used to start the pool, but they are not what's called your pool cold keys. So I kind of want to walk everybody through the payment keys, which types they are, and we can kind of talk a little bit about that. Ron, do you have a means for me to maybe share my screen? I think that this is possibly the most effective way to do this. If not, I can just talk through it. It's no big deal. So starting out, Cardano key pairs, basically, if we go through the types of key pairs, we can start with like a wallet address key pair. And so when you first generate your keys, like I said, you'll generate your a certain specific type of key, whether it's a payment set of keys or a stake set of keys. And so a wallet address is derived from your payment V key and possibly a stake V key tied to it. So your address consists of a staking component and a payment component, and they're separate. And so an enterprise address wouldn't have a staking component, for example, but for what we're going to discuss keys with the staking component. So, okay, so starting out, you generate your keys. Let's talk about our payment keys. We're going to generate payment keys first. And what a payment key does is it controls who can spend your money. It's a very big deal. And so you can specify the file names. They're actually arbitrary, but for purposes, we're going to be consistent. And any type of public payment key is basically a verification key file. And we're going to refer to that with an extension of V key. Alternatively, a private key is a signing key file. We're going to denote that file extension by S key. But keep in mind, when you're generating your keys, you can call them whatever you want. So if a key is called something that you don't see in the documentation, just pay attention because you may have named it that something too. So the documentation that you may see around there, it may use different things for the key names, but most commonly you'll see payment V key, payment S key. That's your public and private key pair respectively for a payment address. Now, we'll talk about the private key of that, a payment address, private signing key file. It provides access to the funds. So if you have funds held in the address and that key is compromised, that's a big deal. That's a very big deal. And so if you ever find your payment key is compromised, you need to move the money and move it immediately. So a pledge address would have a payment key and a stake component to that. And that's really what you need to keep sacred. Now, there's tools coming out now where stake pool operators can pledge from a ledger, if you will. But if you started when I did, most of us have moved our pledge over to ledgers, but from a similar perspective, our pool cold keys won't stay there. So we had to do that old school. So for those who have pool cold keys, it's very similar. You've got your cold key file, private key, but you've also got a public verification key component to that. So, but going back to the wallets, you also have a stake key component, and there's no difference in technically what the key actually is. It's ED25519 key, similar to a payment key, but it's a totally separate key pair. So when you generate an address, you'll generate your payment key pairs, and assuming you're going to stake the wallet or delegate it in some fashion, you will generate a staking key pair. Now, to generate your actual address, that takes the public verification file from your payment key and your staking key, and it combines those together to give you what's called base payment address. Now, what's really cool is you can generate this base payment address, but then you can create a whole separate set of staking keys and then generate a new payment address with the exact same payment key, right? So you got one unique payment key, and you can have, it may be up to 8. I don't know what the limit is, but if you check out Andrew Westberg's Nerd Out series, he goes into this in pretty good detail. But essentially, that can allow you to take one wallet and do multi-delegation on the command line. Now, the actual wallets don't support this, but you can get pretty sophisticated if you're an SPO. So that's kind of your payment and your staking keys. Now, your stake keys, if those are compromised, somebody can withdraw rewards from your staking address. So it's a pretty big deal if it's like a pledge staking key. You need to get that swapped out as fast as possible. And the other thing that they could do is basically redelegate your pool. So if your staking private keys compromised, existing rewards that haven't been withdrawn are at potential risk, as well as maybe somebody can redelegate your stake. So it's still important to protect, but to me, it's nowhere near as important as making sure your payment private keys are absolutely freaking secured, right? Okay. And then so we talked about the payment address and how that can be derived using.
Hey, Kyle, can you talk about one of the big hacks that happened where somebody's private keys were compromised? I think one of the big ones was the happy stake.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, before we get into the pool keys, yeah, that's the thing. So if you're a stake pool operator, that's the vector. They're going after your payment key for your pledge. That's the biggest thing. See, what a lot of SPOs are doing is they will keep these keys on their hot node because it makes it easy to sign transactions. You don't have to get sophisticated. You can just have your script and blah, blah, blah. You can sign transactions very quickly. But that key touches a hot node. That's not the way to do it. what you in every situation of pledge theft, to my knowledge, has been due to the fact that an operator put a private key on a hot node in some way, shape, or form. Whether there's an operator or operator's partner was enticed to do it, all, and regardless of security, regardless of firewall, every single one of these attacks could have been mitigated if you follow these procedures that I'm going to tell you, or to date, at least to my knowledge. And that procedure would be use a dang cold node to sign all your transactions. So what is a cold node? It's essentially an isolated box. It's not running Cardano node necessarily, but it is running Cardano CLI. And so what you can do is you can basically build Cardano CLI on your hot node and move that binary over to your cold node to keep it updated. So then you can run CLI transactions and you can sign transactions. So the way I operate is I will do all my, on a hot node, I'll get all my UTXO data, right, from whatever address I'm going to pay with. So, because you got to pay for a transaction with some arbitrary address. And so I'll get the UTXO data on a hot node, and then I'll bring that over to a cold node where I craft all my transactions. And I do this manually. There's tools, you know, like Martin has tools and you know, there's tools available, but I like to do mine all, you know, manually just because it evolves and I like to really know what's going on. That's me personally. You know, I've gotten pretty quick with it. But so on your cold node, you know, you can build and you can sign your transactions. You got to include the UTXO data for your TXNs, right? And whatnot. And that you pull from the hot node, but I build and I sign locally. And then you move that signed transaction file from your cold node over to a hot node to submit. So your payment keys never, ever touch the internet. I'm not going to get into, you know, really in-depth edge cases about transferring files to and from the machine. You know, you guys can look into that, but just never assume you're safe. And so I think that's the most important takeaway is there are people out here who are trying to take your money. You are a Cardano stake pool operator and your pledge is public, so they know what you hold. And so there have been many cases where individuals just, you know, either had bad luck or had their keys on their server, or what I believe happens as well is that an attacker will breach and then they'll wait. And they'll wait for you to bring your key onto your hot node for you to sign a transaction. They'll jack it right then and there. It could have been compromised for weeks or months, right? You don't know. But the biggest way to mitigate it is do not put payment keys on a hot node. Don't do it. If you guys don't have a signing node cold, figure it out. Do whatever you got to do to figure out. Stop right now. You're operating irresponsibly. And if you've seen this video and you continue to do it and you get run, you deserve it. I'm telling you, it's very dangerous. Okay, so that's that. And then maybe we can talk about pool cold keys, and then I think we're pretty much done. Well, no, then we can talk about the pool hotkeys too. So from a stake pool perspective, your stake pool also has a pair of public and private keys. This is your cold S key and your cold V key. In some tutorials, it may be like node S key or node V key, something like that. But it is designated for your stake pool. If you lose your pool cold key, your pool's done. You're done. There's no, I mean, you got about 90 days max before it'll run, before it'll stop minting blocks, because you need that cold key to issue a new op cert, right? You got to create some new KES keys and you've got to tie that to your op cert. So if you lose your pool cold keys, you're screwed. If your pool cold keys are compromised, what someone can do is they can re-register your pool and they can change the rewards address. They can change the owner address. They can change anything about your pool. So you could get into this weird tug of war fight with someone that's just trying to screw you over, where you just keep taking ownership back and forth, and nobody wants that. So your pool cold key should always stay cold under all circumstances, period. If your pool cold keys are on a hot node, you should probably recheck your profession.
Those tug of wars that you're talking about, I see those probably happening more with like partnerships. Is there a good way of managing partnerships so that kind of stuff doesn't happen if you get into like a disagreement or something?
Well, yeah. So like, I've never seen a tug of war happen. I'm just talking theoretically. Like if someone's pool cold keys, okay, so let's say I was a bad actor and I compromised somebody's cold keys, and it was a successful pool. I wouldn't really want them to know it was compromised right away, you know, at least not blatantly. So I would probably just re-register the pool and change the rewards address. That's what I would do. I wouldn't change the pledge address. I wouldn't change anything about it the first time. And let them keep the pledge up, right? And then maybe I would add a second pledge address. That's what I would do. I would change the rewards address to my address, and I would add a second pledge address that was also under my control. And then I would just let it ride until the owner noticed that rewards were done. And then at that point, they might freak out and pull pledge or do something else. And I'm not sure, but maybe I would add pledge to the account to keep the rewards flowing. But that's what I mean by tug of war. You know, you're like, oh no, the rewards address not in my control, but I've got 50 million or whatever delegated to this pool and it's pulling in revenue, right? So I want to capture as much of that as possible. You know, most owners I've seen in situations that have lost their keys or felt they've been compromised have said, delegate away from my pool, which is, you know, the right thing to do, obviously, if you're in the situation where you feel you've been compromised, because, you know, people's revenue is at stake. And that's what this is. This is a business, you know? So that's kind of maybe that approach, but it's a situation you don't ever want to be in. Now, if you're a stake pool operator and you're paying an operator to run your pool, they have your pool cold keys. I don't care what you think about your pledge. They have the ability to always take control of your pool, right? If you lose your pool cold keys, you've got to retire the pool. You lose your delegation, the whole business is gone. Well, you can't retire the pool if you lose the cold keys, I guess, but it's just the end of the pool if that's the case. So I've had, you know, customers, because, you know, I'll run pools for clients or whatnot. I've had customers who have come and, you know, felt maybe that they were compromised or whatnot. And in some cases, we shut down the entire operation and made sure to start fresh. But that's something that every single stake pool operator needs to understand, especially if you're partnering with someone to run your pool for you. In order for them to effectively rotate your KES keys, which need to be done about every 90 days, they have to hold your cold keys. And so I remember getting into a spat with a guy on Twitter who thought he was all dandy because he held his pledge keys. And I'm like, dude, no, someone else has your pool cold keys. I mean, and that level of disconnect was concerning to me, because the operator running the pool should have explained that to them very, very clearly. You know, all my clients who pay me monthly just flat rates to run their operations, you know, they understand that I hold those pool cold keys. So that's another thing too. You want to pick your partners wisely, because let's say, you know, the pool operator doesn't want to run your pool anymore. Now you have to trust somebody else with your pool private key. And this is not a very good thing to do. Now, pledge is a lot safer now. You know, when I first started, we used to have to share, you know, either pledge staking keys or do some funky dataless hacks. But now Adalite has a really cool way for you to pledge from Ledger, right? I'm not sure if Trezor works, but the way it works, like for a new pool, what I'll do for like a client who I'm running a pool for, I have control of the pool cold keys, but I don't touch anybody's pledge ever, right? And you guys shouldn't either. So, you know, it kind of gets into dangerous territory. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and say, okay, I'm just going to create the pool for you, get all the params, I'll register the pool, I'll use an arbitrary owner address, an arbitrary stake address, and just get the pool registered. And then what I'll do is I'll say, okay, guy, use your ledger that you're going to pledge with and delegate, you know, put your money in your ledger and then delegate to your new pool. And then now the pool is delegated by the ledger. And then what I'll do is within the ledger, you can get all the staking information that you would need. So, hey, I need your public staking key or that you need to add to the registration script. So then they give you that. And then you as the pool operator can go and create that script for them or create the registration cert. And you give them back the raw build transaction of that re-registration. Then the client takes that build transaction and uploads it through Adalite, and they sign it with their ledger. And so the reason that you have to register the pool first, get them to delegate it, is because traditionally on the CLI, we'd attach the delegation cert right to it, right? Along with the pool reg cert. But Adalite, at least, you know, as of a few months ago, only supported one certificate being attached to the signing, and it had to be the pool cert. So the pool already had to be delegated. So it's a little bit more of a process, but for now, we can pledge from Ledger, and I would strongly recommend that. You know, absolutely, you want to pledge from a hardware wallet, so you're not in a situation where that's being exposed to any party. So that's kind of, you know, things are getting better. You know, our tools are getting better, but for those of us who started early, you know, we're kind of stuck with what we started with, minus the fact that now we've all, or at least, you know, most of us have moved our pledges over to some form of hardware wallet.
So in that scenario, Kyle, after you get the pool registered and set up and the person delegates, would you transfer ownership of the keys back to that person if they're going to continue operating or
well, no. So the way I work, the way I work is, so after they delegate with the pool, I go back and I re-register the pool, and I add the ledger as both the rewards account and the pledge account. And what this does is then it makes the rewards just get deposited into the ledger automatically. So now I don't have to manually withdraw rewards for anybody, because that was a pain in the ass, right? You know, you got somebody wanting their rewards withdrawn every week or every month, and it's just like, you know, it's a lot of work to do manual transactions. So that really helps me out. So if you guys add your ledgers, your pledge and rewards account, it'll get dumped right in there, right? So that's an option too. I forgot what I was going to say. I had another point though. Can you repeat what you told me, and maybe it'll trigger it back?
Well, I was curious if there's a way, if there's not right now, like if there's a way in the future, maybe if you want to partner with somebody that's going to run your pool, if you can hold the keys without that person running the pool holding the keys.
I think that's possible with Adalite, or it will be soon. There are SPO tools where at some point you guys will be able to manage your whole pool by just signing it on a ledger, or to some sorts. That's, you know, I'm way outside of that game at this point, because all my pools are all CLI based, right? But what I do is whenever I onboard a client, I also get their address and I encrypt all their files and I mail them their files, right? And on encrypted USB. And so then when we talk, I give them a PIN code and they have a copy of their pool cold keys. If you're paying someone to run your pool, odds are they'll have a copy of your pool cold keys. It makes it easier because if I want to rotate KES, I can do it real fast. I don't have to wait for a client to sign a transaction. It makes it a little bit harder on the pool operator. You're going to pay more money to do that because it's not a simple transaction anymore. Now you've got to craft a transaction with witnesses, right? And everything's a witness, right? The pool code key is a witness. Whatever files I have, the payment address, right? Because I'm paying for it's a witness. Their stake address is a witness. That's the one they sign and give to you. And then you've got to compile it all and assemble the transaction. It's a little bit different architecture. It's not complicated after you do it a while, but I think stake pool as a service is okay, but don't ever let anybody tell you that leverage is the decentralized argument when they're paying somebody else to run their pool, because that means somebody else has their pool keys too. And if someone is paying someone to run their pool, that person running the pool is probably running more than one pool, you know? So now we're getting into marketing and marketing tactics, right? So I don't know if this is a good transition into that, but maybe we could talk about it, you know?
I was actually just going to transition us. We got about 15 minutes. We're doing a hard stop. Normally we do an hour, but we have another meeting we need to jump into. So.
Okay. Yeah. So there's marketing. So you're going to deal with all kinds of shit in marketing, and you have to differentiate yourself or you're not going to survive. You have to approach this like a business or you're not going to survive. And one of the things you guys will get is you will get arguments from pool operators who don't have much of a game. And that's their argument is single pool decentralization. The way you beat that is you just, you know, who's running your pool? How many pools are they running? It's a very simple question. You know, I've been attacked many times by individuals who are paying somebody who runs multiple pools to run their pool. And, you know, I got 2 pools and I'm just like, dude, do you even understand what you're saying? And there's a disconnect there, but you don't want to play that game. You don't want to fight with other operators. That doesn't look good. What you want to do is you want to rise above and bring your own game and just be you. And so there's a lot of ways you can provide value. I harvest email addresses on my website. That's very important. To be able to contact potential or future delegators is extremely strong. That's a long-term play. But if you want to be here long-term, you have to think long-term, right? The other thing I do is I run a Telegram group, and I slowly built up a loyal following in the Telegram group. It's not huge, but they're tight, right? And so that's your core business. Is you want to build a core brand of delegators that on a bad day, maybe you could say, hey guys, move to this pool or do this. And you can move stake just by kind of directing. I'm not saying that that's the goal, but that's an idea that you're in the right spot when you can do that, right? When you can direct some of your delegation to go. Because right now, there's a lot of pool operators that think that they're doing very well because they've either they've had some good rankings placements, right? Things like that. And they're just doing fantastic, but they're not engaged with their customers. And so that's where your opportunity is not all customers are the same. And that's something very important to understand. You know, some operators are going for the low hanging fruit, the guys that want the really low fees. That's not me. I want the guys that respect why I'm here. You know, the guys that can tolerate a few bad epochs, right? That are invested in the mission, because that's my value prop. I want to charge a little bit higher fees, but I want to bring enough value to where my customers look at me and say, okay, whatever this guy is doing in the space, that's going to make the value of whatever I'm holding go up way more than some bullshit variation in fees. So that's kind of the tack there. Now, keep in mind, this is something to think about, because marketing here is not a science by any means, right? It's complete art. But what's happening is we have a ton of people who have made a whole bunch of money on ADA recently. Now, as time goes by, that ADA will be divested into profit in some way, shape, or form, sent to an exchange. Now it's new blood. It's open game again, right? Who's going to get that? You see what I'm saying? So there's going to be churn in the market as prices go up and as we mature. As we get more and more users coming into the space, they need to learn. They need to be educated. Who's going to teach them? So there's a lot of opportunity for you guys to pull your weight and build rapport. And, you know, I sold for Intel for 5 years. And that's the one thing I learned when I was dealing with customers or potential customers is you give. If you give and you provide value, it'll come back full circle. And so, but it takes work. Nothing is free and nothing comes overnight. And, you know, if it was easy, anybody could do it.
So speaking of newcomers, where do we see like the biggest amount of newcomers coming in that we can engage with? Is it mainly in Telegram channels? Is it on Twitter? Is it in like Cardano forum?
Well, no, I mean, I think users are everywhere. Okay. Anybody interested in bettering themselves financially or economic opportunity is a potential user. So, you know, me, I do a lot of Twitter work, right? You know, built up a decent following there. You can post on Cardano forum, right? If you're bringing value there, maybe it's just engaging people and answering questions. But one thing is very important to understand. Desperation stinks. Right? If you guys come in and you're always trying to stake with me, nobody wants to hear that shit. Nobody gives a shit about your stake that got, you know, your new delegator in your pool that's not really your new delegator. Here, let me tell you guys one thing real quick. If you guys are looking on Pool PM and you see a little plus and then some stake to it and it doesn't show what pool it came from, it's either a very brand new wallet, which is kind of rare, or it's your existing customer adding to his bag, right? He received money or he pulled it from the exchange. So seasoned delegators, when you guys are posting, I got my new delegator, you kind of look silly. So nobody cares. You know, that's great when you hit milestones. That's something to talk about. It's great if you're doing great performance. That's something to talk about, but you want to measure it. I get that it's exciting when you first start out. It totally is. You know, when you first knock your first block, fucking tweet the shit out of that, right? Yeah, that's awesome. Welcome to the show. That's just my 2 cents. But I think the most unattractive thing you can do is argue with other pool operators. Focus on your own. I
definitely agree with that.
That's the
what about posting like epoch performance and like in a standardized format?
I don't do it anymore.
Yeah, I don't see like as much value on Twitter posting that, but maybe like in your Telegram channel to like your delegators. I don't know.
I saw a guy who was doing YouTube videos of every epoch of a pool update, and that's not valuable, I don't think, to a you know what? If I was brand new to Cardano, I'd probably think that was cool for a few weeks, and then it's not cool anymore. Maybe we can talk about the types of value we provide, things like that. You know, content is king, right? It always will be. If you can teach your users something, you can build rapport with them and you can touch them. And that's really what it's about. It's a human connection, right? It's them knowing that you're a person, right? It's them knowing that you have feelings and hopes and dreams and desires and babies to feed and all that good stuff, you know? And if you can make that personal connection, now it's real. Now we're in the real world and we're helping each other. And those types of customers that they're so much better than the customers that are going and just looking at fees and numbers. You know, if you can get your customer to believe in you, you're unstoppable. Now that's hard. It takes work. It takes effort. And from my perspective, the best thing you can do is just be you, but you've got to give. If you come in just looking to take, like there's a lot of you'll notice this every so often we get a new wave of new operators creeping in. It's not going to stop. But when they come in, everybody who's here and who's put in the work is now turned into some sort of, you know, we don't deserve to be here, or we didn't work for it, or we need to share what we've earned and things like that. And
instead of attacking everyone else, you should be promoting like other people that have been putting in the work, and also, I mean, looking forward to like SPO portfolios. How do you create groups like of collected interests and shared missions, and then those eventually can be on a marketplace where you can delegate to a portfolio of pools. So that's the kind of stuff if you start building that now.
Yep. Yeah, you're right, Ron. Looking towards the future, at some point, wallets will support delegation portfolios. So there's things you may want to do from, a perspective in that regard. Find like-minded operators that you can work with and move forward with. At the end of the day, we are all competitors, and that's something we all have to keep in mind too. But the guys who came before you, they're respected for a reason. It's not just because they were here first. There's a lot of work that went into building where we are today. And so, I don't know. It's hard coming in now without having a lot of grounding or footing. It's going to be really hard because what you are competing against is larger bags, right? Larger bags that have established loyalty and rapport already with other operators. So really what you're competing against now are the smaller bags that are coming into the space. They're not really familiar who to so it's just easier to sell a new person than it is someone set in their ways, I guess is what I'm saying. But that doesn't mean it can't be done, but the competition's fierce. And I guess the takeaway is if you just come to the game and expect stake to come, you will lose. You have to market in some way, shape, or form. You have to create a brand for yourself in some way, shape, or form. And it takes energy, and it sucks, man. I would so much rather just be building and doing stuff rather than pushing that side of it, but it is absolutely necessary. And if that's not you, maybe find somebody who that is and partner up with them. There's a lot of great Twitter personalities who do that, right? They're not technical at all, but they partnered with somebody technical on the back end, and whatever their arrangement is, it works for them. But keep in mind, you don't just want to partner with anybody in any business, right? There has to be some fundamental established trust, or at least there should be. Down the road, it's going to get nasty, I think, with smart contracts, but we don't need to talk about that today.
Well, I think that was a really good discussion, Kyle. We actually do have to end the stream a little early today.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody.
Say goodbye to everyone on YouTube.
Bye. Do we get any questions, or are we all by ourselves?
Oh, I was chatting with some people on here. Just a few comments.
Okay, cool.
All right, cool. All right, I'll see you in a little bit.
Okay.